Coach, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you, Rob?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks for asking. How's South Florida?
Well, it was a beautiful day. I took a little bike ride and about 78, nice clear skies, a little breeze, just about perfect day. Chamber of Commerce was happy.
Awesome. Well, we've got a big show with Coach Martelli joining us, and looking forward to hearing his insights into this college basketball season, what's happened already and where he thinks it's going to end up. So we'll jump into that in a minute. And while we're waiting for Coach Martelli, I saw one of the most interesting playoff seedings maybe in history. And, last week we talked about the SEC and the Big Ten trying to change the seedings. And I think this should end all complaints. So Nebraska high school basketball, they have the basketball playoffs, a team that is 1-20. That's 1 win and 20 losses is a number 1 seed.
How can that be? Because you shouldn't even beat. First of all, if you're 1-20, you shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and so it's one of
a decent record to make the playoffs. Otherwise, if every team in the state is in the playoffs, then it's not really playoffs. But
yeah,
how do they become the number 1 seed?
Well, that's an interesting thing. It's a sub bracket, and the number 2 seed is 9-13. So you have a 2 seed 9-13 and a 1 seed 1-20. And so the philosophy behind this was this school played a lot of bigger schools.
Obviously, they played up every game. They played up to higher levels and higher level competition than what their school is.
Right. And so that is how they got the larger seed. But that still is that's remarkable to me, that a team that wins 1 game, whether it's a sub bracket or what, how they could be a number 1 seed against somebody who won 9. That's just mind boggling.
I can't fathom that. So it obviously means that every team in the state of Nebraska gets in the playoffs. And then it's seeded by their schedule. Strength of schedule is most important there, because 1-20 means if you're the number 1 seed, your strength of schedule is ridiculous compared to the other teams at your level.
Makes you wonder if the people on the committee don't have some connection. And the school, by the way, is Hastings St. Celia. So I think we're going to adopt Hastings St. Celia as our team to watch them next week as they progress, hopefully, through the basketball playoffs in the state of Nebraska. What do you think about that?
I can't believe it's Hastings St. Celia, because I have been to that high school. Believe it or not, when I coached at Notre Dame, I went to that high school to recruit a young man. And the day after I left, Tom Osborne and the entire Nebraska staff was there. They were not letting a guy from Hastings St. Cecilia go to Notre Dame, and he ended up going to Nebraska. He was like a 6'8" offensive lineman. So I have been there. It is a long way from anywhere. Great people there in Hastings. A great Catholic school. But
we're going to adopt them as our dark horse for the Nebraska State Basketball Championship.
I'm all in. I've been there. I've been to the town. I met the principal. I think it was 2011. I went there.
Well, good. Maybe we can set you off for some inside reporting there. What do you think?
Sure, I'm going to keep tabs on the Nebraska high school basketball tournament for sure now.
What do you got this week going on in sports, Coach?
Well, there's a lot going on. I mean, you've got spring training, you've got the NBA is really getting cranked up. They're starting to make some moves in the NBA, and then college basketball is what we're going to talk about. I'm excited about college basketball because this is right as they get ready to enter into these tournaments. So there's a lot going on there. I still think college football is trying to figure out the NIL piece, the portal piece. There's a lot going on there still as they reduce rosters.
Oh,
I think one thing that you talk about.
Coach is here.
Is he?
Yep.
Oh, good. Well, one thing is the reduction in these rosters. So we'll talk about that, but college football is going to reduce down rosters to a maximum of 105, and you can scholarship from 85 up to 105 if you have the budget for it. But no more having 140 kids on the team with a bunch of walk-ons. Everybody's going to get a scholarship at the major colleges. So that's a new thing.
Awesome.
So we're getting Coach there. All right.
Coach, how are you?
I'm doing terrific.
Awesome. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Coach. Where are you at today? Home?
I am in Newark, New Jersey. I'm doing the Seton Hall Villanova game tonight.
Exciting. There you go.
Awesome.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
Coach, if I can ask you, jump right into it because I know you're pressed for time. You've obviously seen a lot of changes in the game of basketball. This year, it looks like the three-point shooting has just blown up off the charts. Have you seen the same thing?
I think that I think teams are shooting the ball better. I don't know that usage is up. I'm not an analytic guy, so I don't know if usage is up, but teams are shooting the ball better. And as we go forward, the teams that shoot the ball the best are going to advance. I have always been, it could get me drummed out of the coaching profession forever, but that idea that defense wins championships, I don't buy that. I really don't buy that because no championship has ever been won 30-28. Now, maybe that team in Nebraska that you're talking about, maybe that's the way they'll win, but you have to score the ball. You have to be skilled in this game. And the teams that are the most skilled, the Alabamas of the world and the Dukes of the world, they're the ones that are going to be standing, I think, at the end of March into April.
Coach, I've noticed because I've been around and coached in a lot of conferences, there's been a shift, it looks like, to me, of power. And the SEC, maybe I'm wrong, you tell us, is the SEC taking over as the premier conference now in college basketball over the ACC or the Big Ten?
Absolutely. And what happened was several years ago, there were a number of the mid-level conferences like the Atlantic 10 and the Missouri Valley and Mountain West that got bids, and the SEC didn't like that.
Right.
So Greg Stanke and his group, they went in and studied the secret sauce. And now if you look at their scheduling, if you look at the challenges that they made, that they're the power, despite the great run, obviously, that the Big Ten has had with Michigan winning the national championship, Ohio State winning the national championship. The power has always been in that SEC football. And they were challenged. Their coaches were challenged by their administrators, their league administrators. Let's pick it up. And they certainly have. And when you start talking about, it's never going to be the number that with the first brackets where the people were talking about 13. And that's impossible when you start competing against each other. Losses add up. But
right.
Like over the last month, every week, you're like, well, what's the game of the week? And the game of the week has always been in the SEC. So they're a monster. They have unbelievable coaches. They have unbelievable facilities. They have unbelievable resources, unlimited, really, resources. Yes. And if the players are going there, and it used to be they were going there to be prepared for the next level. Now they're not. They're going there to be well compensated, not illegally, but they're going there to be well compensated and to play every night. And if you play every night against the best players in the country, then that next league takes note and says, you know what, maybe that player is more ready because he's at Mississippi State than he is at Oklahoma State.
Right.
Interesting. So, of those SEC teams, you had Georgia pulling off the upset of Florida, and I'd like your opinion. To me, it looks like Florida is the weakest of those. You looked at their non-conference schedule; they had 0 games against teams that were ranked at then, and now they're basically 500 in the SEC against the ranked teams there. And so, your opinion, if you were to rank those SEC teams, Auburn number 1?
Yeah, I think that Auburn's number 1. Alabama is 2. I think those ones that have caught your eye, Florida early and Missouri, obviously Arkansas kind of bumping along. Kentucky, I think it's a fabulous story because Mark Pope is such an upbeat kind of guy. But those two separate themselves, Alabama and Auburn for sure.
What about Tennessee? I mean, where are they at in that? Because they're up there highly ranked too, aren't they?
Well, and again, you have a coach there that is
Phenomenal.
preparing for the long run. He's gearing his team in the way that he coaches them, in the way that they schedule. They're like one of those second weekends or bust teams. So I haven't seen enough of them
Right.
to completely understand. And teams like that maybe are more equipped to play in the NCAA tournament than they are to play in the SEC tournament. And a lot of these top teams are not geared, they're not focused on winning the postseason tournament in the ACC or the Big Ten or the SEC. They want to play more than one game, and most cases more than 2 games in March Madness.
Yeah, and Coach, you make a salient point there, because take Tennessee, for example. 1 week they're beating a great team, and then the next they're getting blown out by 20 by a top 25 team. As a coach, if you have a team like that, what are some of the things that you do to try to overcome a 20-point loss like that?
Look at yourself first. How are we practicing? Is our team tired? Is our team physically, mentally, psychologically tired? Because we can call it what it is.
Right.
But all of these teams started practicing in June. It was supposed to go in. It was a sensational rule passed by the NCAA. Everybody complains about the NCAA. This was a great rule. It was player development. And I sat in on many of those meetings. Everybody said, I would never coach in the summer. But that's not what has happened. Now, some of that is because you are bringing in a whole new team in most cases, that you are doing shell drill and you're doing closeouts and you're putting in defensive schemes. I'm still not comfortable with that, because I think what happens is we're getting more kids injured. Like,
Right.
What happened? And when you play, people didn't get injured. And because we're always in structured play, I think there's more wear and tear on these guys and ladies. And the whole idea of now you're in February, we're not even at March yet, and we still have 2 more weeks of the regular season. Those that are keeping their team fresh and can be playing better at the end of the year. That was always my goal. My intention was, let's play our best basketball in March. Even if we had a so-so, if we're playing better, that means that practices are beneficial.
Right.
Some teams, I think, get tired, and it ends up hurting them at the end of a long, and I hate even using that. Come on, think about it. We're asking them to play 40 basketball games. That's not a long year. A long year is like, working on asphalt in 100-degree weather. That's a long year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, well, right now, so let's say you could pick the team right now. Which team, what roster would you want to coach from here through the NCAA tournament if you had to pick a team?
Well, this is a personal experience. The most fascinating team that I've seen, because I covered one of their games for TV, is Maryland.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Maryland has 2 traditional bigs. They have 3 perimeter guys shooting more than 40% from 3. They have absolutely limited bench, and they just have a very calm approach. There's not a lot of gyration. They're playing the game, and they play a matchup zone when most people are just going out there playing man-to-man and defending the pick and roll all these different ways. I'm most fascinated with Maryland.
Yeah, 2 of those, they should be what, top 5 or at least top 10 picks, right?
I don't know. I don't know that. I mean, Rutgers for sure has 2, but Maryland, Derek Queen is a freshman. He's terrific. And it is an ironic that in high school, can you imagine being a high school coach and rolling into a game and the front court on the other team is Asa Noel from Georgia, Cooper Flagg from Duke, and Derek Queen from Maryland? I would take a sabbatical for that game. I wouldn't coach that game.
You go back in after warm up and you got a really bad stomach ache.
I got to go home. I'll see you guys later.
I mean, yeah,
Coach, how do you feel about the NIL entering the playing field, so to speak?
Look, I don't think anybody's going to say it. Well, I don't. Okay, these young people should get compensation for how they represent their school. Now, we can keep pretending and calling it NIL.
Right.
But once this settlement comes in July, it is, and it has been, it's pay for play.
Yep.
It's different. It's not something that we're all used to. What will it lead to? To me, it'll lead to a European club kind of separation. These young men are representing Michigan in men's basketball. Now, how we're going to educate them, what else are we going to do for them? Are they going to pay for their own tutoring services? Are they going to pay for their medical? Like, that all has to be worked out by, I think, as high a level of the government being involved in this. So the fact that they are being compensated is terrific. It's sad, though, because it is transactional. It's no longer transformational. And my question is, are we doing enough? Do they understand tax implications? Do they understand that all of this, they almost have a social obligation? Are all these young men and young ladies, are they giving back a little bit to better their communities? What if every kid that had an NIL deal was to come out and say, you know what, I'm going to give 1% of my money to a charity of choice? It would make other people feel a lot different about them. But are they aware tax implications, the charity, the obligation that comes with money is you need to do greater good, and that it's two-way. Like, when are we going to get to the point where they say, you know what, we promised you $50,000, but we thought you were going to give us a double, and you fell a little short. So, let's go back to the table. And not a beef, but my concern was this. At one time, all of these things came together. An additional year because of COVID, a no restriction transfer policy, and now we're paying them. So basically what they said was, get in your car. We hope you get there. And in basketball, we hope you get there, meaning San Antonio for the Final Four. Get in your car, and we want you to know this. The course is downhill. There's no brakes on your car, and there's no seatbelt. We sure hope you get there. So the collateral damage, like, I have on my phone a call from a retired IRS. He is begging me to get him to in front of people. When he tells me 32% of these kids are paying their tax bill, 32%. Okay. And his quote is clear to me. The IRS is going to get theirs. However they have to go and however long it takes them, they're going to get theirs. But we're not doing enough in a collegiate world to explain to these young men and women that this is, like $10,000 is not $10,000. And you have obligations that go with that.
Yeah, I think the NFL and I'm sure the NBA, they have rookie symposiums, and
No question.
And they educate these kids about financial planning and about tax implications and about all these things. And like you said, charity work and how to give back. And we're not doing that in college. I mean, I'm currently active college football coach. We do not do that to the extent we need to educate these kids to help them and their families.
And like, how about how about not training them, but educating them with the ability to say no? Because they might get, let's say $1,000. Well, we also know that there are others, whether they're the friends from the neighborhood, some family members that say, well, I would like a little piece of that. And so could I get X amount of money I need this? Remember, I was there. I drove you when you were 10 years old to your game, where I coached you. And because despite their abilities, despite their persona, they are just kids who all of a sudden have money, and it's not transformational money. It's immediate money. And I think the whole down the line, where there's money, there's temptations. And so, and with all that other, the Big Bang Theory, we also are now in a world where there's legalized gambling. So there's legalized gambling and kids with money who are susceptible. I'm not wishing that on anybody. I'm not predicting it. I'm not saying it's going on. But those gamblers, Las Vegas didn't get built on a chance. They knew what they were doing.
Right. And you're right. There are very few kids today that don't have on their phone a betting app. I don't care who they are or where they are, especially if they have more than a couple $100 in their pocket.
No question.
And then it's a question of making sure you stay away from the sport you're in and so on and so forth. And
no question.
That opens a whole nother can of worms because they don't need the money to get their education. They're getting training table. They're getting education. They're getting tutoring. They're getting all these things. Their needs. They don't have a lot of needs to spend that money on. It's all discretionary income, in my opinion, being in the sport.
To be honest with you, you make such a great point here. So let's take like the average kid and let's pick a figure. Let's say that the average kid, and I'm just using it because of the connection. Let's say that this average kid is $100,000 at Michigan playing football.
Right.
And he's not among those that have been gifted to say, well, you'll play in the NFL. Even the short-term length, right? But he walks into his coaches and he said, I've always been interested in banking. Can you guys help me? And you well know Michigan helps Michigan. So, yeah, we're going to be able to get you a job as a teller. And by the way, that job makes you make $55,000. And the kid's going to look at you and say, excuse me, I make $100,000 now. I do not pay my rent. And I've not paid for a pair of shoes since I was in the 7th grade. I have all the gear and all the food that I want. And now you're telling me that I live like this for $100,000. Now I'm going to live on 55. I don't know how to do that. Shame on all of our schools.
Right.
Shame on all of our schools, because are they prepared for the real world? And I'm saying, no, they're not.
You know, and I was gonna ask a follow-up question about the players' development, but I was more looking at on the court. But you're 100% right. And then you mentioned the family pressure out there. So the pressure, okay, you're making 100,000 at Michigan, but you could go to Iowa and for 150. And you know how much pressure kids have that, because like you said, it's now an unrestricted ability. It's like free agency at the college level.
There's no pressure. It's done. It's a transaction. But that same transaction happens all over the world, right? In any business, like I can do more here. The challenge that I issue is this. Where does that kid, in times of stress, where does he go back? Where is his home? Right? Where is his home? Who does he call when he gets his first contract? Who does he call when he gets married? Who does he call birth of his first child? Who does he call on the death of a parent? Who does he call when so many young people out there go like, yo, this isn't what I signed up for. I want to try another path. Who is his counselor? Who's his godfather who will lift him through those times of stress? And when hell breaks loose, I've never been cut from a team, and you're telling me in the NFL I've been cut. What am I going to do? When you jump around for an additional $10,000, $50,000, my question to everybody out there is, who do you fall back on? Right? Again, it's not bad. It's just different. We are in the transaction world in college athletics, when we used to be in the transformational world in college athletics, taking young men and young women to manhood and womanhood. And that saddens me. However, there are people that are holding out and still going to do it with the idea of, I'm not interested in the next 4 months you making X amount of money. I'm interested in that 40 years from now, you can look at us and say, you know what? I know exactly where I have to go in times of joy and times of sorrow.
That's so well put. And I think you make an outstanding point that I've always wondered, not just about the taxes, but, you know, do they have the counseling is it advantageous for them with workers' comp? How do they get insurance to protect themselves? They should be taking that money and using it, like you said, to build the foundation for the next 20, 30, 40 years of their career. Not just sporting career, but
yeah, they don't need anything. Not like they need to go buy it on another tattoo. They don't need to go pay for it with more sneakers or more gear. It just, I'll give you one. I did a game, and I was talking to a strength and conditioning coach, and I said, does the transaction impact them coming in and saying, I don't want to lift?
Yeah.
I don't want to lift. The guy said to me, no, I have a relationship that they know that this is about the next level. He said, you know where it comes into play for us? And this program had a chef 24 hours a day. He said, we'll prepare a pregame meal that is a really good meal. It's nutritious. It's the right thing to have. He said, they come in, look at it. No, I'd rather do Uber Eats. I'd rather do. So we, the coaching world, the support staff, I don't know why we would do it. I don't know why we would say, okay, there's no more meals.
Coach, it's so funny you said that. I have a friend who's a strength coach for a Division I basketball. They came into Boca Raton to play FAU. I was in the lobby with them while the team was coming down right after the shoot around. They had a game that night, and they had food for them. the players all walked in, and when they walked out, they had all their Uber Eats and their food delivered. They were all picking it up in the lobby, and none of them were carrying anything from the meal that they had laid out in there for them after the shoot around. They were all getting their order. They wanted what they wanted, and they have the money to do it. And so the team provided this beautiful meal at the hotel, and it was interesting to see. In the
I was blown away when they said it to me. I would have never thought of that. And
you're right on. I just saw it last week. I just saw it. They're getting their wings, their pizza, their barbecue, whatever it is they wanted that they found online that was good in this locale. And then but it's interesting what these kids like. After a game on Saturday night, I want to go home and spend the night with my family. And these kids are going to Ruth Chris.
Amen.
I mean, that's where they're going to have dinner after a game.
Amen.
It's interesting, you know.
Well, let's lighten it up a little, Coach, and because what you said is so meaningful, and it gave me a lot of food for thought. And just think, just what you said on the diet. How's that going to help their development getting to the next level when they have eating habits like that? Because I'm sure you know better than anybody that the professional players don't eat that way. But this year in college basketball, what teams have surprised you the most?
Well, I think that Michigan State has been a surprise. You know, they were a middle of, well, upper tier. There's so many teams in the Big Ten now, but they were in that top five. I think St. John's.
Yes.
And I think of St. John's being a surprise because when you look at their offensive numbers in today's basketball game, and you go like, well, how can that team win? And they're doing it with grit, terrific coaching, and rebounding. And then a team that no one will talk about because we're all East Coast centric is St. Mary's. We have to know that St. Mary's has beaten Gonzaga twice. There's not a lot of teams over the last 2 decades that could say they beat them once, let alone beat them twice in 1 year. Those teams kind of jumped to me. And then I think you might say, oh, well, Duke again. Yeah, but Duke with all of those young players playing an older game, I think they have been fascinating to watch their development.
I agree. I think.
Well, Coach, it's interesting that Michigan State is the only top 25 team that's shooting less than 20 threes a game. So when it comes to the tournament, maybe the fact that they play a little bit of a different style that some of these teams play may work in their favor.
Well, you know one thing, they're going to rebound every one of your misses, and they're going to try and rebound. They're going to try and rebound their own misses. They play close to the vest, but they're also different that they play 10 guys. So that's a plus. And you know what? I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm just fascinated at Michigan. Like in a world today where you look around and say, wait a second, you're telling me that 6'6" guy is your center? Oh yeah, we're going to play 5 out and we're just going to attack you. So for Dusty May to roll out 2 7-footers and then play so efficiently and effectively, hats off. And I'm delighted for Will Cheddar and Namari Burnett, who stayed the course, and for all those passionate Michigan fans that they have a team that legitimately can be playing deep into March. So they're a team too. I've enjoyed watching. I don't have any bitterness about anything any successes that they would have.
Yeah, Dusty was a great coach down here at FAU. I got to see him for 3 straight years, and so that was a great pickup by Michigan to bring him up there, and he's done a great job.
No question.
Brought some players. He brought some good players. He brought that golden kid from the 7-footer from Russia. He's really developed for him. Hey, I got a question for you. Interesting question. Like, because there's a lot of veteran good coaches in the game, but who do you think's the best in-game coach? Like, who the game starts? because it's all about adjustment. I mean, we all prepare. I mean, every single coach is great at preparing his team, but who does the best job? Who 2-3 guys that are just elite and like once that game starts, they know how to manipulate their team.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go another way with you.
All right.
I think it's the most. I think it's the biggest TV cliche out there. The coaching to me, and you've done it. The coaching to me is Monday through Friday on your game, and then Saturday it's showtime. It's like a professor in a classroom. The professor in the classroom is measured by how well his students do on the exams. A coach is measured by how well his team performs based on the daily preparation. So I'm a much bigger believer that we have created this idea. He's a great game coach. Why? Because he yelled at the referees, or because he put a game plan in place and he's allowing his players to perform. So when to call a timeout, when to bark at an official, when to substitute, I think that's our responsibility on game day. But it's really about the players' preparation. So I've always been so much of an admirer of the coaches that I think, man, I would like to watch them practice.
Gotcha.
Because their team is always prepared. So Jay Wright, his team was always prepared.
Yes.
And a guy like Mark Few, his team was always prepared. That's where I kind of take the measure of a coach. I'm not like, oh my goodness, do you believe that he played zone coming out of a timeout? No one would have ever thought that. No, most of this stuff is just copycat anyway, right? The original stuff's in basketball were Pete Carrill's offense, the Princeton offense. Well, that was Pete Carrill's. And the John Chaney zone. Why do teams not play zone? Because they can't mimic what John Chaney taught Monday through Wednesday. And then on Thursday night, you're like, I don't know what to do with this thing.
Right.
Was that the toughest defense you've had to go up against, defensive scheme?
Yes. That was really daunting.
In terms of places to play, I know you've coached all over the place. You've broadcast games all over the place now. What are some of the venues that other than the obvious ones like Cameron Center, that if we're a basketball fan should be on our bucket list?
You can begin and end with one place. If you have never been in the Palestra in Philadelphia, go tonight. Go tonight. There might not be a game there, but here's what made the place special. The ghosts in the building still make it noisy. So you can walk into the Palestra when there's no game going on and you can hear the noise. It's the most fascinating. Think about what they just did. Sunday in Philadelphia, the top two Catholic schools in the city this year, Roman Catholic and Father Judge, played 10,000 people for a high school game.
Jeez.
And to this point, I'll give you a personal little anecdote about that. I coached in that league. I played in that league. And obviously I coached in Philadelphia. I couldn't get a ticket. I called 4 different people and they said, well, just go to the door. And I'm not that kind of person. Like I'm not entitled to anything. I wanted to do it just like Joe Public did it. I couldn't get a ticket. I got off the phone when I couldn't get a ticket. I made one phone call, and 90 seconds later, I had 3 tickets to the Final Four. I couldn't get a ticket to the Philadelphia. But anybody out there, and everybody out there, one building, it's absolutely positively the Palestra in Philadelphia.
Awesome.
I got a question for you, Coach. So if you had to vote right now for Coach of the Year, like if you had to place a vote today, not based on these conference tournaments, not based on the, NCAA tournament, but who do you think at this point? I mean, is it Rick Pitino? Is it somebody? I mean, who is it that you think has done the best job? And I know that's putting you on the spot.
Pitino has to be up there. But I would also lean to, like for Auburn in that league this year to be at the top with Bruce Pearl.
Pretty good.
That's
pretty good.
That's pretty amazing because he's really playing a second weekend NCAA game every night out in that league.
Right.
And if you can stay at the top of that league, it's extraordinary. Pitino, I think it's more like you have to be in the nuts and bolts and say, you're telling me that this team shoots this percentage from 3 and this percentage from 2 and this from the foul line, and they're still going to be, 26-3 going into the NCAA tournament.
I know.
It's amazing. And also factor this in. He's doing it with no pros.
Right. And I mean, and UConn owned that league for the last couple of years, and then all of a sudden they've beat UConn twice. And I mean, that stood out to me. I mean, just pretty good stuff. But
if you put your fan hat on for a second, how do you feel like some of these blue bloods, like Coach Warinner just mentioned, UConn, Kansas, North Carolina, none of those ranked in the top 25, and
Kentucky, yeah,
it's fascinating. I think I just saw a blurb today that 5 or 6 schools that were in the preseason top 25 are not ranked this past week. Now there's twofold there. Maybe one, I know why we do it, but maybe we shouldn't do preseason polls because you're basing it on last year's team. No one knows. No one knows unless you've been in the gym with those teams since June what they really have. But and I'm not like a big parity guy. I'm just saying, yeah, these teams have gelled faster. Baylor's not in the top 25 anymore.
Right. Baylor's even up there. Great coach.
So, but at the end of the day, the blue bloods are still the blue bloods. When we start talking about who can be there at the end, all of these schools are still going to be in the conversation. They may not be on the first page of the conversation, but they're going to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
Once you're a blue blood to me, you're a blue blood.
Because nobody wants to go to Allen Fieldhouse and play Kansas there. Nobody wants to. That's
but think about it. They're going to have for 2 years in a row, for the first time in forever, Kansas is going to have multiple double-digit losses.
Yeah.
Right.
So does that mean that Naismith Hall of Fame is going to call Bill Self and say, oh, by the way, we were wrong before. You're no longer a Hall of Fame? No. He's still a Hall of Famer and will be at the end. And Hunter Dickinson, who is just a terrific guy, he's going to be in the mix for first team All-American.
Right.
Is Connor Flagg the best freshman you've seen in college basketball?
I just think to say he's a freshman and after what you see it's mind blowing. So certainly this year, and to hold up to the hype, right? Because it's extraordinary. It's just absolutely extraordinary. And he's a year ahead of schedule. Like he reclassified a couple years ago.
Right.
What if he was a high school senior? Seems like head scratching, really.
Yeah.
To be that gifted, that young. And be from Maine.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, I can't think of another pro from Maine, to be honest with you. That's a trivia question we're going to look up and provide our listeners next week because that's a drink at a bar.
There we go.
So Final Four. Auburn. Can Houston sneak in there?
Wow. That's another one we never talk about, Houston, because they just they pound you and ground you. It's almost
they play football, they grind you. Kelvin could be a football coach.
Yeah, they had a couple losses early to Alabama and gosh, I forgot who else.
I'm gonna go St. John's, Maryland, Arizona.
Arizona.
It's got to be somebody in the SEC.
Right.
I thought you would have said Michigan
Alabama.
State for that last one.
Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Where do you think your Spartan team that you spoke of earlier will end up?
Wow.
I know they could be. I think they could be.
Yeah, Michigan and Michigan State, to me, like Michigan, because they can score, I think has a bigger upside than Michigan State, because they truly do grind you down. And sometimes when you get into particularly that second weekend, but all of it depends on matchup, like the matchup, and it will not be flat entertainment. It'll be real entertainment. And the beauty is, we'll be talking about basketball. We won't be talking about transfer portals. We won't be talking about NILs. We won't be talking about court decisions. Let it be about the basketball. And if I was to say one thing in the games that I broadcast, that's been a joy for me, because so much has been about, oh, woe is us, the game, And then when I go out there, when I go tonight, it's going to be 5 kids wearing Seton Hall across their chest and 5 kids wearing Villanova across their chest. And they're going to play hard. And may the best team win.
Yep. How would you have liked to call that ugly Michigan-Nebraska game earlier this week? I mean,
well, I assume that they gave the broadcasters helmets, because you have that many missed shots. Somebody could get hurt over there.
Oh my
I was actually
gosh.
in my upstairs office. My wife was watching it downstairs, and she came out and she said, Michigan and Nebraska are tie. I said, oh, how much time's left? She said 6 minutes. It's 35-35. And I was like, thank you that I'm watching this other game to prepare for my broadcast.
That was like an 8th grade game, right?
Wow.
I mean, Lord almighty. But I think that's the problem with Michigan is I think you're dead on. They have a high ceiling, but they also have a lower floor than Michigan State. Because for all the reasons you articulated, that Michigan State can always keep that game pretty close. That's
a good statement. I do think a lot in college basketball has to do with settings. And if you go to that setting, so Michigan State play on Friday night, and then 2 days later, Michigan is traveling to Nebraska, and they have a great home court. So maybe it was a setting situation. I don't know, because I didn't see the game, but the numbers
look at
were just it's not. I'm not sure that I'll see it on ESPN Classics or anything.
I think they're going to use it as what not to do, how not to play basketball.
Well, that's something that people don't talk about. When they expanded these conferences and now there's 4 teams out west in the Big Ten, they don't know what it's like for these kids to make those road trips with the other things they have going on and the sleep deprivation. I've been through that. It's brutal as a coach. As a player, it's brutal. And then to get your legs under you and the shoot around and your routine is off. It's hard to keep your routine with that much travel. And they don't understand. A lot of people don't understand that.
I sat back last Thursday night and it was an 8:30 game, and it's USC and Maryland on a Thursday night
in College Park.
In College Park.
Wow.
So they left California on Tuesday.
Right.
They were going immediately after the game. I was walking to my car. Their managers were loading up their bus. I said, "Where are you going?" They said, "We're busing up to Rutgers."
Rutgers, yeah.
Tonight. And so I'm doing in my head, I'm driving home and I'm saying, they left campus Tuesday. They're leaving Rutgers after a 6:00 game Sunday night. They're going to fly back. And so what are we, as the coach, is going to say to them? Get to your classes on Monday. To be honest with you, some of it is the curse of COVID, because
Yes.
we found out that we can give classes remotely. So that's just not a normal college thing. You left campus on Tuesday. You're going to be returned to class on Monday. But because we have remote learning, and it seemed to work during COVID, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And it goes back to how we started this, right? The development, how are these things affecting the development, not just of the player on the court, but the man and women off the court.
Off the court is, and look, it's not all, it's still a game. It's still a terrific way to go through college. I don't care what level you play. To play a sport in college is a gift. I did a game early this year with Jackson State. Mo Williams, former NBA player, is the coach. They started their season with 13 straight road games. And he gave me a stat like over 41 days, they were going to be on campus 4. And I said to him, how do you do school like that? And he said, it's bigger than that. He said, how do they enjoy college? Like, right. They're not there for a party. They're not there for a concert on campus. Let's say that there's a kid that said, you got to be kidding me. So-and-so's coming here to provide a lecture, and I can't go to that.
Just the socialization of the other student body.
Great word.
I mean, because part of going to college was like walking to class and checking people out and seeing who's in your class and going to the, where the food court and getting some food or the cafeteria. And, they don't do any of that.
Can't.
They don't go to class because they take classes online.
Yep.
And it's just it's different. And it's just, we're trying to figure it out, and we still have to keep working to figure it out because we got to help these kids. We got to help these kids. I know you probably got to go, Coach, but I had one question for you because I looked it up. Your most famous assistant, didn't Geno work for you for a few years? You got any good stories? You got a good story about, because there's a Hall of Famer. He's
the best to ever do it.
No, exactly. There's no other way to say that, but
he's the best to ever coach women's basketball.
Yes.
He's built this program. And
how many years were you together? Like 4, 5, 6? What was it?
No, we were on the same staff for 2, but we've been friends for 50 years. And when he left Norristown, Pennsylvania, where we coached at a Catholic school together, when he left Norristown, Pennsylvania, he took his 1-bedroom apartment. He had just been married a little over a year, took his 1-bedroom apartment and put it in a U-Haul, not U-Haul, like this big, a trailer, basically. Put everything in there.
Towed it on the back of his Pinto or something.
Yep. And looked at me and said, look, if this doesn't work out, can I come back and coach the JV team at Bishop Kenrick High School where we were coaching? And I was like, yeah. And I think other than coming back to visit his parents when they were alive, He's never been back to Norristown since.
Awesome.
But I often say, I appreciate you bringing him up, but I often tell people, when I do coaches clinics, I'll say to the JV coaches and the assistant coaches, hang in there. You never know how this is going to work out. I said, I had an assistant one time, and I lost track of him. I don't know how he's doing. I hope he's doing well. And then I say their name and everybody laughs, and I'll say, why is everybody laughing? Is he doing well? I lost track of him. So.
Yeah,
Coach, you're amazing. I thank you so much for coming and spend the time with us. I can't wait to turn the TV on tonight and hear your voice.
Well, thank you for including me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, enjoy your broadcast and have a great rest of the season and enjoy what's ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Stay well, Coach.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Wow. I mean,
a lot of basketball in that head, a lot of perspective, seen a lot, been through the game, watched the game change, has a good feel for it, man.
There was I know he was pressed for time, and I know our show's bumping up against it here, but I would have loved to have talked to him about, when the Big Five in Philadelphia played, LaSalle, St. Joe's, all Temple, all those schools, that's a big effect there. So a lot of stuff. Hopefully we can get Coach back on at some point down the road, and we'll have to see.
I'm sure they all played at the Palestra. I'm sure those games were all battles at the Palestra, like you said.
Yep. So we got the coach's picks for the Final Four. I can't wait to see how those turn out. Ed, what are your picks in the last minute that we have for the Final Four?
Wow, that is interesting. I think a little different. I do think that Auburn will make it. I think Auburn has showed the test of grinding through. They may not win the SEC championship, but they don't need to. I still think they're a number one seed. I think they'll be into the Final Four. Something tells me that just the way Rick Pitino coaches his team, they'll be snooping around there at the end. They'll be fighting for a spot because it doesn't seem like they have any egos on that team. They play a brand of ball that'll carry them through the tournament. So I like them. In the Big Ten, be interesting to see. I mean, sometimes I want to lean towards Izzo and Michigan State. Then sometimes I want to lean to Dusty. I don't know, the brand of ball that Michigan State plays. You don't have to shoot threes for them to be successful. They're not a 3-point team. So that tends to hold up in the tournament. They could be a team that, could make a push to get to the Final Four. Then there's going to be somebody that we're not expecting. Who that is, I'm not sure. He mentioned Maryland. He mentioned Arizona. I'm not sure yet.
Well, as we wrap it up, I'll give you mine as we sign off here. Auburn, you got to go with the favorite there. I also think Alabama from the SEC, but I am going to surprise it with a SEC all Big Ten matchup. Got to go with my Wolverines and a dark horse Oregon Ducks team.
Wow, that's exciting.
So those are my picks. Coach, it's been great. Can't wait for next week.
All right, Rob, you have a great week. Thanks so much. And it was fun. It was fun talking a little college basketball, and excited to see how this season plays out.
And we'll have another great guest next week. So thanks everyone for watching, and have a great day.